In 1327 BC, the great king of the Hittites, Suppiluliuma, laid siege to the formidable city of Carchemish, determined to succeed where he had previously failed. While the siege was unfolding, a letter reached the king. It was from Ankhsunamun, the widow of the Pharaoh Tutankhamun, and she was seeking a husband. In her plea she wrote, "My husband has died, and I have no son. They say you have many sons. You might give me one to be my husband. I would not wish to make one of my subjects, I am afraid." This plea was unprecedented and presented an incredible opportunity. But from it would come incredible suffering, including the first known instance of biological warfare. But before we get to all that, we may need to rewind a bit. Let's dig in. Suppiluliuma, born to the Hittite King Suppiluliuma III, faced a dire situation in his early years as the Hittite kingdom teetered on the brink of extermination. Northern foes, the Kashka, launched attacks alongside Ashua and Azi from the east, while Arzawa claimed territory in the west, reaching all the way to the traditional Hittite homeland. Even Hattushash, the capital, was burned, prompting the royal family's narrow escape to a city called Samuha in the east. Young Suppiluliuma was tasked with reclaiming the empire's losses. Whether he was guided by a grand strategy or seized opportunities at pivotal moments as they presented themselves remains unclear. Yet, methodically, he revitalized the Hittite Empire, vanquishing Kashka tribes, claiming western lands from Arzawa, marching into Ashua and Azi and establishing the latter as a vassal state. The capital was recaptured, allowing the royal family's return. His father died and passed the throne to Suppiluliuma's older brother, called Tudhaliya the Younger. This brother died under mysterious circumstances, and Suppiluliuma was made king. Having secured the empire and the throne, he turned his attention to Syria. Suppiluliuma launched his Great Syrian War around 1340 BC. His aim was the Empire of Mitanni, a confederacy of Hurrian peoples which maintained several vassal states in Syria from their homeland in northern Mesopotamia. Mitanni was the dominant power in Syria. It had earned its position, having previously fought to stalemate the conquering pharaohs of the 18th dynasty, pharaohs like Thutmose and Amenhotep. This conflict had established a quasi-permanent border between the two empires along the Orontes River. Despite Egypt's retreat to a more introspective foreign policy during the Amarna period, Suppiluliuma navigated carefully to avoid provoking the pharaohs. During the Great Syrian War, Suppiluliuma worked quickly, targeting Mitanni's vassal kingdom Ashua before confronting Mitanni itself, after which Mitanni was reduced to what was essentially vassal status. After sacking the Mitannian capital of Washukani, he turned to Syria and quickly subdued the several minor states near the Orontes. Although largely successful, he fell short of achieving all of his objectives. Carchemish, a strategically crucial city, remained unconquered, and the Mitannian king survived, preventing a definitive end to the kingdom. Yet, trouble brewed at home. Persistent threats from Kashka tribes as well as from Arzawa compelled Suppiluliuma to return to Anatolia to safeguard his own territory. He entrusted one of his many sons with the governments of Syria in his absence. Seizing the opportunity, the young Egyptian king Tutankhamun launched an attack on Kadesh, a recently acquired vassal under Suppiluliuma's rule, with the pharaoh asserting that Kadesh rightfully owed allegiance to Egypt. Apprehensive of a potential alliance between a weakened Mitanni and a resurgent Egypt, Suppiluliuma had no choice but to intervene. Returning to Syria in 1327, he found himself once more besieging Carchemish when the letter from the wife of the pharaoh arrived. Egypt had a long history of foreign marriages, but Egypt would only marry princes to foreign princesses, never the other way around. So Suppiluliuma rightfully expressed, "Nothing like this has ever happened to me in my entire life." Understandably, Suppiluliuma was skeptical of the offer. Not just an offer of alliance when the two kingdoms were on the brink of war, but an offer for his son to be the ruler of Egypt. He dispatched an envoy to see if this was true. Was the king dead, or was this a ruse by the newly aggressive pharaoh to lure him into a trap? While he awaited his envoy, Suppiluliuma finished his conquest of Carchemish, and the Mitannian king was assassinated by his own men, allowing Suppiluliuma to return to Anatolia. The following year, his envoy returned to Hattushash, and not alone, but with an envoy from the queen with news. Tutankhamun was, in fact, dead. The queen protested, "I have no son. Never shall I take a servant of mine and make him my husband. I have written to no other country, only to you I have written. They say you have many sons, so give me one son of yours. To me he will be husband, in Egypt he will be king." Suppiluliuma couldn't pass up this opportunity. He had 5 sons. One was the crown prince, 2 were viceroys in Syria, the youngest was still very young, so he sent his 4th son, Zannanza, to Egypt to be the new pharaoh. But Zannanza never made it to Egypt. He died on the road. One great mystery of the ancient world is who killed Zannanza. Suppiluliuma blamed Egypt. The former vizier of Tutankhamun, a man named Ai, had been made pharaoh. Ai was related by marriage to the royal line, and so to legitimize his claim, he married Ankh-Sunamun, Tutankhamun's widow and Zannanza's fiancée. Ai denied involvement in the Hittite prince's death, but the Hittites didn't believe him, and perhaps we shouldn't either. Understandably, the Hittites vowed revenge. Suppiluliuma tasked his eldest son, Arnuwanda, to invade Egypt. The crown prince crossed the border and attacked several Egyptian strongholds. While no permanent territory was taken for the Hittites, a large number of captives were brought back to Anatolia. But in a fateful turn, some of these captives inadvertently carried a plague with them, a bacterial infection known as tularemia, or rabbit fever. This disease spread like wildfire across Anatolia, persisting for nearly 2 decades. In response, Assyria and Egypt closed their borders to the Hittites in a bid to contain the plague. The origins of the plague remain uncertain, as it could have been transmitted by infected animals taken as loot or by the captives themselves. Tularemia is characterized by fever, skin lesions, lethargy, and a death rate exceeding 50%, and it wreaked havoc in Anatolia, claiming thousands, including Suppiluliuma and his successor, the crown prince who briefly became Arnuwanda II. The Hittites, grappling with the loss of leadership and a significant decline in human capital, were vulnerable. Recognizing this weakness, their adversaries, notably Arzawa, contemplated invasion. That is, until the plague came to Arzawa. But this was not incidental. This is believed to be the first case of biological warfare. The Arzawans report they found some rams which had suddenly appeared outside their land, and they were brought into their settlement. It's believed that these rams were infected with tularemia and intentionally sent to Arzawa with the goal of infecting the region. As the plague ravaged Arzawa, the Hittite heartland was spared the ravages of an Arzawan attack, marking this episode of biological warfare as a success.